Welcome, everybody, to Unbreakable Podcast. This is Thom, Shea. And as most of our podcasts, and by a lot of your requests, is to seek out people that have relevant topics and ideas that will help everybody who's listening. And this week's podcast is one of those. And my commitment out of this podcast is that you learn something about your body and hopefully your mind. And because I'm going to be interviewing a woman named Kayleigh Martin, and she's an embodied wellness coach. Is that what it is?
Yes, it is.
Yes, so welcome, Kayleigh.
Sure.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
And so I want everybody to listen from the idea that you're eavesdropping into maybe a coaching session or something like that, because my body has been around the block, around the world. And one of my buddies named Robert, he introduced us. And I watched him move around. I'm like, how can you still move around and bend? I thought you were broken. And he goes, hey, you need to talk to this girl. So as you're listening, you're eavesdropping into me finding out more about my body, and I'll be probably more brutal than Kayleigh's ready for. So here we go. So before we begin, introduce yourself so that everybody kind of knows you and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, again, my name is Kayleigh Martin, and I call myself an embodied wellness coach. I know that coaching is a really hot word to be calling yourself or as a coach, and I add in the word embodied because I really, through my practice, I really want people to feel at home in their own skin, at home in their own bodies, to build a better relationship within themselves. And I use a lot of somatic approaches, and the word somatic is derived from the word soma, which means body. So a lot of what I bring into my coaching practice is a lot of body awareness and sensation awareness.
It may be uncomfortable, but as everybody's listening, before they forget, what's your website called?
It's KayleighM.com.
You want to spell that? Because I had to look that up myself.
Yeah, I know. Fun fact about me, I was named after a really cheesy British song named Kayleigh, and it's spelled KayleighM.com.
Okay, good. So let me tell you a little bit about my, not my SEAL background, but my body background. Athlete forever, got out of high school in '86, went into the SEAL teams, and I've done adventure races, I've done ultra marathons, I've been in helo crashes, I've been in bike crashes. I don't have any bullet holes in me, and I'm 50. And my mid body is locked up. My legs are in great shape, knees are beautiful, ankles are beautiful. Just my midsection, she don't want to bend. So, and that's what I was still impressed with Rob, is that he can bend a little bit, not as good as I can. But so with that in mind, what have you learned about whatever you do? Obviously there's yoga involved in it that could help out old crackheads like me be able to function.
Well, you're not old by far. And it's interesting, so just to dive right in, it's interesting that you use the word locked up. So what I've learned is that the body holds onto different energies, or it stores everything that we've experienced. And we store that in muscle, in our cells. And through my coaching background, I got my master's in integrative health studies, and I'm also studying something called somatic experiencing, which is the work of Peter Levine. I've learned that the body holds on to these energies and that can lead to different somatic symptoms. It can lead to certain diseases, and it can also lead to extreme muscle tension.
Mm-hmm.
So in in a session where we would work, you gave like this really beautiful description of locked. And I'd be really interested to know, what does locked feel like for you, body?
Well, so bending forward, stiffness begins at about 20 degrees off the straight up and down. And from 20 degrees till around 90, it's pain and stiffness. After 90, it's easy. Like once I bend all the way down, it's very relaxing. But between midlife crisis and when I was 20, but yeah, I've had X-rays and stuff done on my back. The reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of people have the sit disease. It gets worse when I sit, and the more I run, the less I feel it. But I can't run all day long like I used to. But so, is there something that I can do that will help? Make a list. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you that answer from a couple perspectives. So first, I'll address it on the physiological aspect of actually moving your body. And from that yoga perspective, I always say practice makes progress. And there's no perfect in yoga. A lot of people say, oh, well, I'm not flexible, I can't do yoga. And I'm like, well, that's the exact reason why you should be doing yoga, is to gain that little flexibility. It's not about putting your foot behind your head. Yoga, the word yoga means to yoke or to come together. And to me, that means balance. And every single person has a different idea of what balance means and also what balance feels like in your body. So balance for me might be folding all the way over and touching my toes, and balance for someone else might just be really standing up really tall and feeling your feet on the ground. So it's starting to build that body awareness, getting to know the sensations of the body and learning how to stay with the sensations instead of running away from them. So, for example, I've seen a lot of people stretch at the gym and they're like, let me push and push and push and see where I can push my body to in this stretch, when really it's about the ease and relaxation. So maybe you don't go to that 90 place, you rest in that 30 place, and you rest in that 30 place for a minute or so, or maybe even 2 minutes. You're stretching kind of into what we call yin yoga if you're holding a posture longer than.
So I've always wanted to ask somebody, what happens when you hold it longer? Can you describe it to everybody?
For sure. So I think there's a myofascial release. So if you think about the fascia covering the muscles, they start to ease up a little bit. So you want to kind of get into the fascia, kind of like foam rolling or rolling on a ball first before getting into that deep muscle stretching. So holding a posture is letting the muscles go from that contracted place to that easeful place. So that's why we emphasize, or as yoga teachers, we emphasize the breath so much, because that helps you stay with like breathing through something. It helps you visualize and bring in ease to the muscle. I always say that ease is what's going to gain you flexibility, not the pushing.
What what happens as the muscle obviously relaxes, but because for me, what happens is I can get around 4 breaths into, when it's painful and tight, and then it gets hotter. Like my sensation of that area in my mid to lower back is it gets hotter as I keep it contracted. What is that all about? Because everybody has those. They're not brave enough to ask the teacher. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So what I say is, so one of my rules in yoga is that if it hurts, don't do it. So if you're going to a place of pain.
Hold on, because I'm never going to do anything now.
Well, so I think there's a difference between uncomfortable and painful.
Yeah. I was joking. Yeah.
Well, so that's what I always say though. Like, yeah, some things are terribly uncomfortable. And I'll say in my body, I'm not as flexible as all those other people out there. And there are some things that are really comfortable. And I'm like, why the heck would I do that willingly?
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
Yeah, I know when I reach these points, it's like, okay, there's something for me to explore here. And so, heat in the framework of somatic experiencing, heat is a discharge of the body. So, it's an energy being released.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the body saying, okay, there was something pent up here, or shaking is also a release, or I don't know if anyone's ever experienced just kind of a spontaneous upwelling of emotion when you've been stretching or when you've been working out or getting body work done. But that is the body discharging what I was talking about before as that stuck energy. And it lives in the muscles, it lives in our tissue and our fascia. So
Mm-hmm.
when we get to that point, you feel, oh, instead of running away from that heat, can you say, oh, interesting, I'm a little bit hotter in that area now. Let me stay curious about it and see how it transforms instead of going, ooh, that's a funky sensation. I'm going to run away.
Mm-hmm. So as as that happens, what can I do? Obviously, so otherwise we're going to have to get up and do yoga in front of people. So as you know, me for instance, I'm in a position that's tight, warm, painful, but not. It's going to snap off and I'm going to die type pain. What can I do to alleviate that? And you're saying explore, which explore to me is different than it probably is to you. So as people are listening, and again, me in particular, as I'm exploring, how do I do that?
I like to use mindful awareness as one, and also I have something called a wellness nap that I invite you to take. I've taken them a lot the past day or so because I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and so this practice is about it's an acronym, so it's not necessarily just roll over and take a little nice nap. It stands for notice, attune, and practice. So the first step with transforming anything is we have to become aware of it. Because if we don't have any awareness around something, we can't change it. So noticing is saying, oh, I notice heat. I notice uncomfortability. I notice maybe a little tightness or shakiness. So these are descriptive words for the felt sense of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be anything like cold, tight, heavy, loose, fuzzy. So all these descriptor words. So you tune into the body and say, okay, the body has this language, this ability to talk to us in a certain way, and it has its language is feeling tone or sensation. So first you notice what is the actual feeling tone that I'm experiencing without saying, wow, I'm the tightest person on the planet, or I can't stretch anymore, because that's a story.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to first. And then the second, attune, is to notice that story, to say, wow, what's actually going on here? Can I recognize how I'm feeling in the moment? Like, is there an emotion connected to it? Am I feeling scared, angry, anxious? Is there a story connected to this that, like, oh, I'm never going to be able to become more flexible? So you attune.
So yeah, my stories. So I'm always interested in that. The story conversation. Like I don't hide from them. So every time I'm, certain pains in my back, depending on the location, I have a million stories, and one that is a common story is pain associated with accidents. Accident in particular has been a couple helo crashes in Afghanistan, where you come down really hard and it hurts. And there's two spots on my back that when they hurt, I immediately I recall them, but not out of crying or anything. It's just I'm immediately back into that circumstance, and I know it'll go away, but I immediately go into that, 9 year ago condition where I don't want to shoot anybody, but I mean I can recall it very vividly. textures and tastes and feels and all that stuff. What do I do with that?
So even as you say these things, as you recall them, can you feel them in your body?
Yes, as I can, if I think about them, I can immediately feel that in my body, in my back, on 2 spots.
Yeah, so those 2 spots are it's a very familiar sensation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we would do is we would stay with those. I'd say, well, describe those more.
Mm-hmm.
What is the feeling tone of that? Are those heavy? Are they hot? What words would you use to describe them?
It's always hot, never heavy.
Mm.
And I can't stay in that conversation long because then the story evolves the same way each time. The story is, now my feet hurt because I'm walking. Because after the crash, you just got to get out and do stuff. So I vividly remember feet. So the pain is still there, but it's about 4 out of a 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then since my back hurt terribly, I was probably walking funny.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an extra 110 pounds on our back and our backpacks. So all I recall after I feel the pain, even when I'm stretching and even when I'm running, if I get a back twinge in those areas, my feet hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish I could cry. Maybe that would get rid of it. But I never can have those experiences. I just go relive all that stuff. But it never heavy.
So it's good to know that. And so this is where the work of somatic experiencing comes in, is having a guided facilitator with you to say, okay, and your feet were heavy, and can you notice the sensation in your back? And we can just be with it for a moment. So really a lot of the work is time and present awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes sometimes, like the way that you're describing this is also a trapped fight, flight, or freeze response.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incomplete. So you said, well, I don't want to shoot anyone, but I wanted, you had to get away. So there's a little bit of a fight there. There's a little bit
There's
of
a big fight there. Yeah. No, but I don't now. I say it tongue in cheek because now I don't feel that pain, and then, that's not the fight that I want to get in because it doesn't seem relevant now. But I can live in those memories. The reason why I'm sharing this with you simply because I want other people to listen to. I think I wear my emotions on my sleeve. My wife doesn't think I have any, but I'm very open to talking about what I'm going through so that other people can learn from you and then obviously listen, gain an advantage. And I've gone through those experiences in pain. I don't shirk from pain. I don't run from it. What can people like me do on a practice of going through that experience? Is there a time derivative to it? Do I need a guide like you, or what could somebody do in their own home that would help them?
So to do it by yourself there are guided meditations and guided exercises that you can listen to. Peter Levine is the founder of Somatic Experiencing, and apparently I haven't moved in my room. Lights just went off in my room. There we go. So Peter Levine is the founder of Somatic Experiencing, and he has a book called Healing Trauma, which has an accompanying CD, and you can use those. For the practices of Yoga Nidra, which are really beautiful practices to aid
What's
in
Yoga
sleep.
Nidra?
Yoga Nidra means sleepless sleep.
Okay.
And Nidra is guided meditation when you're lying on your back, so you don't have to be sitting up. You can prop yourself up. Given any injuries, you can be on a pillow. You can have something underneath your knees. And it's basically a guided meditation where you move through the motor cortex of the brain, and it's like progressive muscle relaxation meets guided imagery. And it's a really beautiful way of aiding sleep I like to use it to take like constructive naps. If I'm ever having, there's like 12-minute yoga nidras, and I feel super refreshed after them and not like that groggy after sleep. So there are guided exercises like that, as well as just reading some resources online to really understand what the body is actually going through, to like walk you through step by step through this little process. For
Do you
me,
do them with your clients?
I do. I absolutely do. So this nap process I use with almost every single client, and it's the most useful things that they have taken into their lives. And also I do.
Especially in San Francisco. Y'all need to take a wrap off. So people can actually reach out to you and you'll help even with the smallest thing like that, or maybe it's a big thing that is.
Absolutely. So while I'm using big words like trauma and anxiety, and like I work with a lot of people who experience professional burnout. I've also used these with clients who are coming in with super solid goals.
Hmm.
Well, I want to be able to make decisions better and faster. I feel stuck. So stuck is a word I often hear a
Yep.
lot. So these
Yep.
practices aren't just for the big T traumas, they're also for managing everyday life.
Hmm. Uh, what was it? So I have a question for you, because I'm always intrigued how you got from where you were as a young woman to this place that you are. Obviously, it's not an end point, but what got you into this? Because there's a lot of different paths. So something was a cliff that you either jumped off or climbed up, and it was an interesting journey. So what was that? What got you to wanting to do this and spend your life pursuing it?
Well, I can say that I've always been interested in moving my body and the unlimited potential of my body. And I actually thought I wanted to be an artist, and I pursued textile design. And during my undergrad, I realized that I started learning more about integrative health and the mind body connection, and that, like a fun fact is that like we have more afferent nerves in our gut that inform the brain. So 80% of our nerves in our gut are go up and inform the brain rather than brain informing the gut.
Hmm.
So wow, that's really interesting. We have
I
this.
have 90%. Just saying.
You're
It's
above
always telling me to eat, so we're good.
I might have 90% too, if that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
case.
yeah.
Um, so there were these little things that were coming into my sphere, and I knew that, designing pretty designs, while it's an amazing talent and amazing practice, I just knew that I was being called to work directly with people,
Hmm.
one-on-one, in group, face-to-face communication. So I started to work in design, and I really got attracted to yoga, and I got brought into yoga not just as moving my body and flexibility, but really as a lifestyle. And through that, I discovered yoga for PTSD and got really interested in how the body stores trauma, and how just moving and stretching your body, meditation, can really start to alleviate the symptoms of trauma. And then I pursued my master's in integrative health and kind of took off from there.
Well, so the PTSD thing is interesting to me. I haven't been declared it, and I don't have noticeable PTSD. Uh, Yet a lot of my SEAL buddies do. Either the overpressurization of the brain during explosion and the scar tissue, or you know, the somatic hold on of trauma in combat and the killing effect and all that stuff. What have you learned about that PTSD phenomenon, and how those people who have seen it, how do they hold on to it, and what have you learned from that?
I've learned that trauma is really an impact to your nervous system. It's a dysregulation. So I really actually don't like using the D in the disorder. It's like
Mm-hmm.
post-traumatic stress. So
Mm-hmm.
it's basically your nervous system has a natural rhythm, and that rhythm got knocked out of place because of an overwhelming event. And then your nervous system just has been on a roller coaster ever since then, and relaxing into that normal rhythm isn't normal anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That obscure kind of erratic pattern might feel normal now. And so what my practices do, and like my tagline is live within your rhythm. So learning how to notice what good normal feels like instead of living in these high anxiety or high stress states or low turned off states. So I've seen through these
Wait,
practices
there's
that
two. There's more than two states. So how, I'm going to ask a specific question. How did I don't know who you've worked with, not by name, and I wouldn't ask it. So recently, a couple of my buddies committed suicide, and I can ask a question, and you're gonna like you don't have any specificity to it. What causes that to transcend to the point where their nervous system makes that decision? That's how I look at it. So something got overwhelmed, and the only choice is to take the left turn instead of the right turn. What happens neurologically or somatically or all of that causes that you know of, that you can talk about?
I've asked this question of myself recently too, or of the world, because I recently had a friend who attempted and kind of has this kind of repeated pattern, and I've seen it play out over the last few months. Um, I'm not sure I can give you a really definitive
Well,
answer
let me
on.
ask it outside the PTSD thing. So if I've had a trauma and I have this sine curve of spike and then down and up and then down, and you were talking about that middle ground. So what causes the person that's had a big spike in stress
Mhm.
to want to stay high? Why does their nervous system want to be stimulated? And then why doesn't it go to the middle ground? Why does it go from high to low and skip step two?
Mhm. So staying high is because the system really likes that charge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing, like it's a repeated pattern. You're like to be in that high state because it's a little bit addictive. Your system is charged, it's amped up, and it feels like having those hormones flood your system eventually starts to feel good. And a little bit of relaxation feels scary because you feel like you always need to be on high alert.
Mm-hmm.
So there's fear of releasing and relinquishing control of that high alert. However, so usually you see a spike from really high to really low because that's the crash, because what comes up must come down. But because it was so high, its alternative is to go really low.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at, and this is just kind of my personal opinion, putting it out there, if we look at suicide as a low low, it's staying low, it's having no other opportunity. We call that, it's like the freeze state is where you feel like you have zero other options.
Mm-hmm.
And that your fight response, your flight response, you have no actual control over what's happening. So what's left?
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it. When there's nothing left, there's the choice. And I know psychiatrists would say it differently, but when you're down, you get one choice. And so neurologically, how can people that are on the high or the low retune so that it's not as the low tide and the high tide symptom? Because I can tell you the high tide is fun. Everything works. You can
There,
smell, you can see, you can taste, you can touch. Everything is at its utmost and it's functioning at whatever 100% would be for that person. that's appealing.
Yeah.
And for the people who have seen combat, it's a very appealing thing to be at high alert. It's not appealing to be low, but the the hormone runs out and the everything runs out. And electricity got to shut off, and that's the deal.
Right.
How do I shut off without doing damage, or how do I keep the hormones from squeezing the whole tube out? What do I do? What kind of movement can I do in my office, in my bedroom, that will allow everything to somewhat get off the zero and not go to the 100?
Right. So I think there's a two-pronged approach to it. There's the actual attachment to wanting to be on high. If you always want to be on high, that's probably what's going to keep happening. That addiction is probably going to keep running. So there has to be a willingness in someone to want to change, to want to say, wow, yeah, my parasympathetic nervous system, my rest and digest, maybe I have gut issues. A lot of IBS shows up with stress and anxiety and trauma. A lot of fibromyalgia.
Is that because it's too high? The irritable bowel syndrome, is that because the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, or totally out of whack? How would you describe that?
I would say overstimulated and out of whack, because it's continuous. When you're in sympathetic, there's no need. You are perceiving threat, and why would you need to digest your food? why would the maintenance need to be going if you're fighting an actual threat? And so the body is continuously perceiving like, oh, threat, threat, threat. Why digest?
That is an interesting phenomenon that I find business leaders, not the IBS side, but the sympathetic stimulation and the digestive problems and the fat around the belly. So if you can, what are two practices? This is going to hit a lot of business owners by answering this question, if you can. So is there a practice that I can do before I eat? Is there a practice that I can do in my office that will allow for better digestion and relaxation before I eat? Because that's a big thing. These business owners are a little bit overweight and they don't know what to do. So what can you tell them to do?
So one of the things that I would say is just to activate your or deactivate sympathetic nervous system, activate parasympathetic nervous system. And I think that means moving away from the computer, maybe looking outside your window and just noticing. And a practice that in somatic experiencing we call orienting. So it's looking around, actually noticing your surroundings, tuning off. So it's not hypervigilance noticing. It's like, oh, let me count the colors in the room. Let me feel my feet on the floor. And I feel my fingertips. So it's noticing, oh, let me tune into the actual body of sensing, sense, smell, sight, taste, feeling of what is actually in my surroundings. And how can I know that in this space, right here in my office, what tells me that I'm safe and that I'm not being threatened? And so that is one of the major keys of finding a little bit of relative safety. Of I'm not being attacked right now. I am not being threatened. Like, how can my system know that it's safe? It's right here in present moment, 2018. So feet on the floor. Maybe even rub your feet back and forth and say, oh, I notice that it's wood or it's carpet, or I have really comfy shoes and socks on today. Or, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that new building was being built outside. So kind of that grounding, orienting practice is really great just to take you away from the stressors or the ping of your email. Turn that off. That's it reminds me of Pavlov's bell. It's like ping, stress. And then the second practice I would say is really gentle movement. I don't know the actual Qigong or Tai Chi word, but there's a movement where you just stand up, feel your feet on the ground, and just sway a little side to side. Let your arms move a little side to side, and it centers around that digestive system. In Qigong tradition, they call it your Dantian. In the yoga tradition, that's your third chakra, and it's all digestion and ego and your kind of core center, your power center. So just kind of making gentle movements of relaxation. I've taught this. I've had clients do this before bed, even just to center and ground. Would be a great way just to kind of start to tune into your body, turn off that sympathetic system, and bring a little bit more sense of safety into the body.
Is there a level of breath that you can take? Because I've read about it, but I haven't asked a professional.
Mm.
So those two things that you mentioned, I don't think would take a lot of time. And what's the value of what type of breathing should they do? Because they can do that in private as well.
Yeah. So in those two exercises that I just gave, you can just notice the breathing. Notice the fact that you are breathing. That's a beautiful practice in and of itself. Just, I say, trace or follow the inhale and the exhale. Just notice how it's moving in and out of the body. Notice how it's balanced, or if it's imbalanced. Are you taking in more air, or are you releasing more air? So that's one practice. And then also a balancing breath. I also like to I often invite my students to place one hand to the heart, to your chest, and then one hand to the belly, because that's where we physically feel our breath. So you are you're creating like self-touch. You're also tuning into the ventral vagal system, which is associated with our parasympathetic system and our social engagement. So tuning that and strengthening that nerve system also helps us connect better with other people. So just placing your hand is there and just feeling the breath. And you can focus on creating a balanced breath. And it can be a 2 count in, a 2 count out. You can go up to a 6 count in, 6 count out. Just depends on where you're at. I caution against recommending a higher count for people who tend to get a little bit more anxious when it comes to counting breath, or just experience anxiety or being perfect about something. So I always invite people to start low, say 2 in, 2 out, maybe progress to 3 in, 3 out.
What's the advantage of longer time out?
So a longer time out is a greater release. So it's letting something go. So I like to think of it as the inhalation is a slightly sympathetic charge and the exhalation as a slightly parasympathetic charge. So it's like the wave of our nervous system. We wake up in the morning, it goes up. We go to sleep at night, it goes down. So
It's supposed to go down when we wake up? Mine goes up when I go to sleep. So yeah, no, interesting. I'm just a little crazy. So a lot of people, and I don't want you to talk about this, and as intelligently as you just did the digestion and the belly stuff. A lot of people I know, including me, have feet problems. Not from injury. I can't say mine are from injury. They're just feet problems, not from diabetes either. So what are some good things that people like me can do about feet that will help? Because the deal is when the tires go out of the car has no value. And I find a lot of value in my car, so I like to keep my tires going. So what are some practices to do with my feet in particular that would help holistically, but definitely help with my feet?
If are you talking about pain directly? Like a lot of
Pain,
Or
stiffness. I can't say swelling, but a lot of pain and stiffness.
okay. Um, so in yoga, one of my favorite things to do, which is a passive inversion, the Sanskrit name is Vipariti Karani. Let me translate that for you. It's legs up the wall. So literally, if you lay on your back and put your legs up the wall, you can be at any distance away from the wall. If you sit farther away and roll onto your back, it'll create a deeper V, so it's less of a stretch in the hamstrings. The closer you are, the greater the stretch in the hamstrings. And this just reverses the blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's passive, it's deeply restorative and relaxing, and it takes some pressure and swelling off of the legs and also helps with varicose veins. Also, if you're just raising your leg and rolling it out, just roll out through the ankles, wiggle the toes, actually pay attention. Don't just go 1, 2, 3, okay, we're done. But like I like to say, move through caramel, move through chocolate. So something that's like a thick liquid that you're moving through. So you really have to explore those joints, ligaments, and the toes, all of those things. And another practice that I think is really great is
What's the time for those?
time for those. I would spend at least 30 seconds, maybe to a minute per foot.
Okay.
When you're rolling it out, the legs up the wall, see if you can stay for 3 to 5 minutes. That would be super restorative. And you can also put a blanket onto the belly when you're lying upside, or when your legs are up the wall. Blanket on the belly, again, that ventral vagus system, we put blankets over ourselves when we go to sleep. It's a way for the system to say, there's a little support, there's a little weight, I can relax.
Because I'm one of those people that read books and talk to people and then go out and practice what it was either in the book or this conversation. So I'm going to practice what you say and put it to use. Otherwise, things are a waste of time. So, and you were going to say something else, though, after the feet up and then rolling them through beautiful mud.
Love getting my toes dirty. So acupuncture, I think, is a great thing to invest in for release of any pain whatsoever, and also especially for the feet. There are so many there, and the feet and the ears have all of the points for the body on them. So it's a really great thing to do that, or maybe even treat yourself to a massage.
Interesting, as I'm listening and thinking of a couple questions to conclude with, what is your kind of, and I ask this about you, not really about what people can learn from this conversation. So what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because you had mentioned when we were talking offline about your interest in veterans and people who've had trauma, or business owners or business people. Where are you taking this? Because I think that's of great value.
A couple pronged answer to that. My big passion right now is working with both individuals and group on self-care and addressing professional burnout. To me, professional burnout is like the complete manifestation of the freeze response of overwhelm, and people feel really helpless at work. And so for me, I want to bring in programs, work with small teams to bring a workshop or program to help teams address individual issues and concerns, help people feel more competent and confident in their work, help people feel more self-regulated and aware of these body sensations and their connections to how they're responding at work and showing up, and help them feel more connected to their passion and mission and purpose. And doing that through group and individual facilitation. And then I have my private coaching business or aspect of things, which is really helping people feel more vibrant health in their life, whether that is addressing goals around their nutrition, around their body, or around connecting to their passion and refinding some vitality in their lives.
Beautiful. So how does somebody connect with you? How do they reach out to you and track you and ask you questions or do your programs?
Yeah, the more questions you have, I welcome them in. You can reach out to me through my website, kayleighm.com. There's a submission form right on my website, and I offer a free consultation where you can ask anything and everything of me, and you can even have a mini coaching session just to see if we would be a good fit, a good match. You can also reach out on behalf of a corporation or organization if you'd like me to come in and facilitate one of these workshops or programs. I am based in San Francisco. I do a lot of Skype calls or phone calls if you prefer that. And Instagram is one of the biggest things that I use right now. And
How do they connect you with you at Instagram?
Instagram is Ms. Kayleigh M. And yeah, I'm on there a bunch, and you can also direct message me on there. And I have a Facebook page, which is just Kayleigh M. So all across the board is Kayleigh M. And they can connect to me through there as well.
Yeah, so as everybody's listening, her social contact points will be in the show notes as well, and I want to remind you of that. And I take what you say not lightly, so I'm very committed. And my father kind of got me on the path of understanding my body. When I was 15, I did a certain type of deep fascial massage called Rolfing, if you've ever heard of that. Because I was a stiff runner, but I was a good runner, but I was stiff. And that made a huge difference. And I get a lot of body work done, probably 3 or 4, either massage or some other, modality a month. And that's why I'm still alive. And I take it to heart. And there's a connection to people that are committed like you to giving us knuckleheads a better, physical life. But they're hard. It's always hard to reach out and find people like you. So I do cross my fingers that people will reach out to you and bring you in, because no matter how well you do, if your body falls apart, it is of no value. So I thank you for your commitment to what you have accomplished. And it's interesting to see people follow something and enjoy it and make it work. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I mean, all of the different modalities and practices out there, they're all different, and they all speak to whatever you have gone through. Some modalities may speak to you and some may don't. Some may not. Like, I'm not a person who says absolutely everyone should do yoga. I think everyone could benefit, but it may not resonate.
Everybody should do yoga. I don't care what she just told everybody. We started doing yoga in the SEAL teams. We were like, yoga, nobody can do it well. All the team guys are like, I could, yeah. It becomes another workout for us. It's not as relaxing, but it's like, how the heck can I get my body to do that? But it was more of an education for us, like a somatic education. Like, woo, didn't think I had a muscle there. I didn't think it was so weak. There it is, But
I feel the same way when I work out. So,
but I there's great advantage to movement. The movement of yoga. She's not going to sell it. I'm just going to tell you it's a legit. And if you're not doing it, do it. It can't hurt. I can tell you it's only going to help. So, and you can do it in small spaces. Doesn't have to be a 4-hour session. Doesn't have to be hot yoga. You can do it in your office to help digestion, relaxation when you wake up. Because there's a legit conversation called when the boss's life works, so does the company. And call Kayleigh. She'll help you. In 5 minutes, it's going to help. So thank you. And I would like to talk to you more later, but I want to thank you for your time so you can get ready to get back to your work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm open to whoever would like to connect and even just have a conversation any questions that might have arisen, and to keep the conversation curious about your body's unbound potential is what I like to say.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's so great to talk with you.
And everybody that's stuck in with us, be bold, be brave, and be unbreakable. Stacy and I love you. Bye.